Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Code Rhetoric with Tam Talk. You can't see me because I have my screen minimized, but today I want to do a quick test drive through the 3M coding and reimbursement system. This is similar to Codify, but quite different. And I'm going to also let you know up front that we don't have access to all of the functionality of this program or the 3M encoder, but it's just to give you a preview or a trial run of how to access it. And for those of you who are currently working in coding roles, I'm sure you are very familiar with it and know that there are additional functionalities that come along with utilizing the 3M encoder. But for those of you who are new to coding or haven't quite yet found your coding role, so 3M again is similar to AAPC's Codify. And so this is the one that is most commonly used within the live coding environments. And so I'm just going to give you a quick test drive of how to maneuver or just showcase some of the functionalities of 3M. So as you can see here on our main screen, we have our patient information where we have our gender, like whether, of course, it's male, female, or other. And then we have like the age at admission, because sometimes our patient's birthday could occur in the midst of their admission to the inpatient setting. So you want to make sure we have the age of the patient at the time of admission. And then typically in a live environment, of course, you have the admit date as well as the discharge date. And then over here we have CMS, and it has the 3MHIS. You have Code Finder. So we're actually going to click on Code Finder because actually it's 3M. I take that back. So we have 3MHIS, and then we have Code Finder because we are coders. We want to look up our codes. And typically also in the live coding session, you will have the drop down for your grouper. Again, this relates to DRGs, inpatient, and probably some outpatient coding as well. But again, this is just a test drive, a free test drive by CMS for those of us who are interested in learning how to maneuver through this program or this app. So, of course, in the live setting, all of these functionalities are available. You're able to print. You're able to add your custom print research if you need help. And then you have access to your books, which is the references. So in this particular test drive, we only have access to our ICD-10 CM as well as our ICD-10 PCS. And again, for those of you who are new to coding, ICD-10 CM is your diagnosis codes, and ICD-10 PCS is your inpatient procedural codes. So when you're coding for the facility, and I want to correct that when I say inpatient because providers do go to the hospital and provide services on the inpatient level. But when I specify ICD-10 PCS, I am referencing those coders who code for the facility. So when the coders code for the facility, instead of using the CPT codes as a Profi coder would, they would use ICD-10 PCS coding instead. But we both, the facility as well as the Profi coders, they do assign ICD-10 CM as their diagnosis codes. And so as I mentioned, you would have access to all of those resources. But again, because we're in a test trial or test drive of 3M, we're limited in the resources that we have available. And then as you can see here, it has the ICD-9, and that's for us dinosaur coders. You know, we were here when ICD-9 was available. And then of course you have ICD-10. Again, as you can see, it has PCS as well as CM. And then you have access to the American Health Association coding clinic for ICD-9, ICD-10, CM, as well as PCS. And so when you use that, like, for example, if you're in the midst of a coding scenario, or perhaps you have coded and a provider or facility may disagree with your findings or your code selection, it's good to have resources available, factual, concrete resources available for your review, as well as for you to share with your provider or those in question of the code selection. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. This is one of the resources that they have available for us to utilize in this test drive. So and then we can go over here and we can see again the drop down. We have patient code summary. When you do that, has a further drop down where you're able to identify the interface codes by color, code numbering, display reference buttons, display code marking first, hide charge codes, and then you're able to adjust your text size. You can have them small, medium, large, extra large, fast forward coding. It is disabled, and it will, or you can have it enabled when hovering over choice, or you can have it enabled with right click on choice. And then perhaps you don't know the exact, I would say, diagnosis or the exact procedural terminology. But if you know a key term, like let's say appendix, appendix could be a link to appendicitis. It could be linked to appendectomy. So you can put in key terms or keywords that will help you drill down to your correct code. And then again, as we see here, the options is blocked out, excuse me. References, as you can see here, there are plenty of references that we can utilize, but again, we are only limited to a certain amount or certain access to certain references. ICD-9, ICD-10, or HAA coding clinic, the clinical pharmacology drug reference, the medical dictionary, and then Elsevier's, excuse me, anatomy plates. I may have tore that whole pronunciation up. But as you can see here, there's so much more that comes with other 3M, again, in a live setting. So yeah. And then of course, again, if you need help, you have help. As you can see here, it's pretty much the same things that are over here that are over here. So we're just going to do a little quick test drive just to kind of see how it operates. So we're going to say our patient is 5 because we're working in pediatrics or pediatrics, excuse me. And then we're going to click continue. And it's going to take us to the next page. And so I'm actually going to move this over real quick so you can see what the drop downs are. So we can add a diagnosis, add procedure, code book, direct code, or we can move to our next patient. Again, in the live coding session. And so we're going to stick with ICD-10 as it relates to the diagnosis code, which is ICD-10-CM, because again, we are limited in our access. So we're going to add a diagnosis. And again, we're going to put in appendix, which is our, okay. So when I type in the keyword appendix, you see the drop downs, the different drop downs that it presented. Okay, is it an appendage? Is it an appendicitis? Is it appendicitis? Appendiculosis? I am butchering these words today. I promise y'all, I know how to pronounce these words. And then we have appendix. So we're going to go with appendicitis. Okay. So we're going to click on that. And look at it. So then it drills it down even further. Okay. What type of appendicitis? Is it with abscess, acute, amoebic, chronic, exacerbation, gangrenous, neurogenic, obstructive, recurrent? And so when you get this is going to be based on the documentation that you're reviewing. It's going to be based on the operative note or the clinical note by the provider. What exactly is being treated? And this is where that, you often hear make sure it's coded to the highest specificity. This is the highest specificity. And so there may be times when you review an encounter and the provider does not specify the type of appendicitis. And in that case, you can go to unspecified, or the doctor may have specified what the type of appendicitis that the patient has, but it is not listed in the drop down. So we're going to go with chronic, right? We're just going to go with chronic. And if the doctor may document recurrent, if it's a recurring issue of appendicitis, it is chronic. So we're going to click on chronic. And then it's going to ask about procedures. And so again, at this moment, we're looking up just the diagnosis. So we're going to click on no procedures. And then it's going to give us a code, right? It's going to give us our diagnosis code. So we've already done our diagnosis code. Now let's go back. Now we're going to add our procedure, right? Again, because we are doing this with ICD-10 PCS and we're doing it for an inpatient or a facility setting. Had this been a pro fee, or like we're coding for the doctor, then we would have the CPT capability, and then we will have the, the functionality or the option to select PCS or CPT. So again, we're going to type in appendix, right? Let's see, appendectomy, maybe. Okay, so when you're doing the PCS or the procedures, you have to be specific, like appendectomy, as we saw here. So we click on that. Was it a laparoscopic procedure that converted to open? And for those of you who are laparoscopic, is when they're actually doing it via camera, and then they have to pull the cameras out and convert to opening up the entire cavity to complete the procedure. Or was it done, I guess, within a different method or methodology? We're going to go with laparoscopic converted to open. And so when we click on yes, it gives us our ICD-10 PCS codes. And so as you can see here, we still have to drill down because there's different codes for appendectomy. Did the doctor like resect the appendix via the open approach? Or did he do an inspection of the peritoneal cavity like a percutaneous endoscopic approach? Or did he do an introduction of adhesion barrier into a peritoneal cavity open approach? So we're saying, to keep things simple, we're going to say that he did an appendectomy. He did a resection of the appendix. He's removing a part of the appendix. Again, ectomy is a removal of. So he is removing a part of the appendectomy, and he did this via the open approach. So we're going to click on that, right? Now that we are there, we're going to click continue. So now we have our ICD-10 code, our diagnosis code, and then we also have our CPT, our ICD-10 PCS code, which is the resection. So, and I'm going to go back. So he obviously inspected the cavity initially, because they did it laparoscopically, and so percutaneous endoscopic. So you may hear the word endoscopic and laparoscopic used interchangeably. So pretty much it is when they perform the procedure via camera, they have the instruments have a tiny camera at the end of them, and then they go in and they able to visualize it, and they're looking at the monitor while they're maneuvering the instruments within the particular body cavity to perform the procedure. That is considered laparoscopic or percutaneous endoscopic. Now, if it's open, that means they're not using the camera. They're literally cutting into the particular cavity that they're operating on, and they're actually looking into the cavity without the technology such as the camera or the television or the monitor. And so, because when I selected it in the beginning, I selected that it started out as a laparoscopic procedure and then it converted to open. So perhaps they could not finish the procedure laparoscopically and they had to convert to open. So this is why we have multiple ICD-10 PCS codes. So we're again, our diagnosis is appendicitis, other appendicitis, because he did specify another form or another type of appendicitis, but there isn't a code for it. So we're going to go with K36. Okay, so we're getting there where, okay, the doctor did start off laparoscopically and then convert it to open. So you want to assign all of these codes. So pretty much this is how you would code via 3M in a live coding session. So once you have your coding done and the case is coded, there's another step where you can confirm and it'll go, to that particular encounter. And then once that has occurred, then you will move on to the next patient. And then we can start over. So this time we're going to do male, right? We're going to do male. And then we're going to say this male is, I'm going to say 65, right? And we're still going to look for the code. Again, we're limited in our access to 3M. So we're gonna add a diagnosis code. And so we're gonna do colon polyp, right? So this our doctor is performing a colonoscopy screening, right? Colonoscopy screening. Yes, we're gonna do a colonoscopy screening. So there is a diagnosis for the colonoscopy screening. Okay. It said, so then once we click on it, it gives us an additional drop down. Do not wish to code family history. Does the patient have a family history? Yes, our patient has a personal history of colon polyps. So we're going to click on that. Okay. Are they hyperplastic, neoplastic, non-neoplastic, or other? We're going to do hyperplastic. Next was the family history of carrier, genetic disease, family history of colon polyps, family history of malignant neoplasm, genetic susceptibility to malignant neoplasm. We're not going to go any further. We're going to keep it like that. So what exactly did he do? So we're going to say he did a biopsy of the colon, right? For the sake of time. Did he do any excisions or anything like that? We're going to go with extractions, right? We're going to go with extraction. Let's see, actually, let's see here. Let's go with excision. And we're just going to randomly pick something. As you can see, it gives you the different parts of the intestine or the colon, from the anus, ascending colon, all the way up to the large intestine. So we're going to do the cecum. Okay. So once we click on the cecum, let's see here. So we click on our cecum, right? And we're selecting the bar. So we did the cecum, and then let's see here. We're going to do descending. Actually, we're just going to do the cecum. Okay, and we're going to continue. There was no additional biopsy procedures performed. No colonoscopy procedures performed. Was there an ultrasound guidance? Say no. Okay, so here we are. So you want to assign a diagnosis codes because it is an encounter for the colonoscopy screening. The patient did come in for colonoscopy screening. The patient also has a personal history of colon polyps. So in this case, we're assigning Z87.19 for personal history of other disease of the digestive system. And then we have our ICD-10 PCS procedure code, which is 0DBH8ZX, which is the excision of a cecum via natural or artificial opening endoscopic diagnostic. Okay, so again, a lot of your code selections will be based on the actual documentation provided by the performing provider or the facility. So again, this is just, again, a test drive of the 3M and how it would work in a live coding environment. Again, we are on limited functionality, but pretty much it did serve justice to show you how this will actually work in the environment. And typically 3M is also like embedded or associated with Epic. So once we select our codes, and again, there will be like a confirmation tab here, it will automatically be assigned to that Epic encounter or Epic charge for that patient encounter. And then again, you will move forward to the next patient and continue the same thing as well. So yeah, so that's all that we have, or actually we're able to do in 3M with this test drive. So yeah, so shout out to CMS for providing this free resource for us to test drive and to become acclimated with it as we begin our journey into a live coding environment. Okay, that's it.